it's okay. And I'll say, I feed Howie sweet potatoes. I feed Howie bananas. I've never had an issue with him with
And you
yeast
don't
ever.
have yeast, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because people don't understand that killing yeast does not solve the problem. Yeast is a little organism that
Mm-hmm.
comes along. It's always in your body. It's always in your dog's body. It doesn't overpopulate until the food supply is there. What does yeast eat? Yeast eats excess sugars. So you want to make sure that whatever sugars you are eating, they are getting digested. And the best way to do that is to eat them alone without the complication of adding meat. So if, you know, lots of prey model feeders out there are giving fruit in the same meal with meat, or cooked yams in the same meal with meat. These bar feeders actually do more of that than the PMR feeders. But they will then, after that, they will notice itchiness in their dogs. And they will take their dogs to the vet, and the vet will say, oh, well, you have yeast. Well, of course you have yeast, because you have a banquet for yeast. And it's because the sugar is not made available because the body is digesting meat. And when you have sugars that aren't digested, they can't get into the cells. They're floating around in the lymph and in the bloodstream, and yeast comes along to clean up the mess. It's like flies around a garbage can. The flies didn't bring garbage. You can kill the flies if you want to, but the garbage is still going to be there. So you can kill the yeast if you want to, and that's what the vets will all do. There isn't a single vet out there. If you take your dog in for a skin scrape or whatever, if they find yeast, there isn't a single vet out there that won't try to kill the yeast. They all think that you have to just kill the yeast and that'll solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. And if you give the dog something internal to kill the yeast, it gives the body so much distraction, so much work to do to get rid of this new poison, that it's going to stop sending waste out through the skin. And that's, you know, we need to talk about that, because what causes that is when the primary channels of elimination, the bowel, the colon, the bladder, all of those are overworked and backlogged, because every day they get overloaded with this indigestible stuff. Then the body looks for other outbound avenues. And that's what the skin is. That's what the ears are. It just sends stuff. It has to. It's trying to protect it. The body's always trying to protect itself. It's always trying to do its absolute best. And when there is too much waste in the body, it starts forming tumors. It stores it in fat. It sends waste through the skin. It sends waste through the eyes, especially bulldogs, through the ears, especially if you have a floppy-eared dog, because dogs in the wild will normally, you know, shake their head if they have, you know, they don't get ear gunk anyway in the wild. That's exclusive to domestic dogs. But the problem with these floppy-eared dogs is there's no circulation in there at all, and you know, it just builds up. But it's not the external stuff that's causing the problem. It's what is coming through. So we have to stop producing all the waste in the body, and we have the power to do that 100%. So you can feed conveniently if you want to, but you'll always have this conversation in your head. Wait a minute, I don't have to just go to the vet for a skin scraping and find out what microorganism is on my dog that they want to kill. That's not the solution. And that's why, you know, it's obvious that it's not the solution, because that's why you always end up going back in 6 months. And I did that. I did that for 20 or 30 years of dog ownership, you know, every 3 to 6 months back to the vet with, you know, and trying different drugs and watching the reactions that my dog had to certain drugs. I put my dog on prednisone once, and she did just really crazy behaviors that led me to think that she was absolutely miserable. And like you said, what you said about Howie not being able to tell you how he feels, when, you know, when we put dogs on drugs, when you take a drug for a symptom and it makes you feel worse than the original symptom does, and that happens all the time. It used to happen to me when I took, long time ago when I took drugs. You know, you go, wait a minute, I'd rather have the symptom back. This is absolutely awful. We have drugs that we are giving to dogs right now that are known to cause suicide in humans. Can you imagine how bad they make your dog feel? But your dog has to keep taking that pill every day because you hide it in its pill pocket.
And also, even with like Atopica, it says right on the pill bottle, don't touch this with your hands, but yet it's okay to give it to your dog to ingest. That's, that always, like, I can't believe how they would they allow that, and
Boggles
it's
the
okay
mind.
for dogs, but you can't touch it as a human. Crazy
Boggles the
ridiculous.
mind.
Crazy ridiculous.
It's harmful for your skin, but it's not harmful for those very
Right,
sensitive tissues
right.
on the
And now
inside.
look at all these dogs like we talked about, having all these issues and things coming up more, and tumors and cancers and seizures and tremors are like so abundant right now, and all these dogs